And so it's an organic level playing field release where there is no boss, there's no CEO, there's no company, there's no one anyone can go call up and say, hey, shut this fucking thing down, right?
They step in and they say that this whole thing is illegal. If you offered any of that in America, it was all illegal, and they're going to murder library, they're going to murder, they're trying to kill XRP and all of this other stuff, and yeah, some of it was corrupt and some of it, but like, what isn't in corporate life? It's like which fat cat bosses are not lining their own pockets, and Congress is at the head of it with Nancy Pelosi.
But this is where it comes. Like, this is why I'm so passionate about this whole industry, because I mean, it's like I don't want to toot my own horn. I do it sometimes, and I say mine, but ours. But the Speak community, right? The way the Speak community is launching this project, right? It's, can we get funding from a decentralized DAO? Yes. Is that fun? Has that funding got strings attached? No, apart from we should use the base chain, right? Which we were going to use anyway. Right, we're using the base chain as the account mechanism and a few other things, right? And then it's like we've distributed a miner token to that base chain. We've got funding from that base chain to fund the developers building that ecosystem. And then now we can start delegating the mining token to the node operators that we like. And then from there, everyone starts at zero and starts mining the governance token, the Speak token. And so it's an organic level playing field release where there is no boss, there's no CEO, there's no company, there's no one anyone can go call up and say, hey, shut this fucking thing down, right? And as a result, and then once the token releases and it has a market cap, it might not be very big initially. These things take time. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It takes a while. But as we release this out and it starts to spread, it starts to get distributed, it starts to get some market cap, some utility. You're talking 6 months from now that I think the network will be up and running quite smoothly. I think even 3 months from now there'll be a minimum viable product out. And at that point, then the question is, can the node operators work together to set up a DAO in that token, which is also a capped governance token, by the way, so it has a limited supply in the same way that Bitcoin does, right? And then can they work together to figure out a way to do a DAO with proposals? And then at that point, the thing's starting to get to a place where it is actually self-financing, self-regulating, autonomous, and we should be able to wean ourselves off the funding from a DAO on Hive. And this is really what the ICOs were trying to do, but didn't have the technology or the foresight or even the ethics probably to do it properly like that. And to me, once we have this model proven, we should be shouting about this from the rooftops. It's like, guys, we've done this properly. We didn't need an ICO. We didn't need any venture capital. We didn't need any funding from anyone compromised. There is no way to compromise the project. It's not owned by anyone. There's no one to call. It's autonomous, and now it's grown and it's organically living on its own. That's the model that we should be following, because it solves so many of the problems we've just been talking about, Brian.
I agree completely. That's why I'm here.
And one of the issues here is they jumped the car. Like, so many people try to build something on no foundation. The first thing we have to build is a censorship-resistant base layer, and we need to reinforce that. We need to make sure it really, really works. And too many people have jumped the gun saying, oh, well, this is going to be it, that's going to be it, without looking at the actual fundamentals, doing some projected long-term theorizing on, oh, well, what could happen if this, that, this. So many people are like, all right, we got a base layer. It doesn't matter if it's censorship resistant. Let's now go to the monetization part, because this is like a new paradigm where we could bypass security laws. We could do whatever we want. So people saw that and they immediately took the shortcut and said, oh, well, you can't really get rich on the no pre-mine, no ICO base layer that needs to be censorship resistant. I mean, you can, but it's a long-term game. It's much easier just to print a bunch of tokens. Like I said, I don't think either is wrong. I just think that you need to have a censorship-resistant base layer so that you can do your Ponzi-nomics, or you can do your truthful, ethical raises or whatnot without worrying about the censorship or the censorship resistance of your account, of your token balance, of the things that just are fundamental that we take for granted, like the earth and the sky. You need this to actually build anything. So it's kind of funny to see how human nature is like, they're like, okay, Bitcoin, we need censorship resistant money. And then, Ethereum came out, and then it was just like that little meme where Timmy runs off and then puts all his money in the gambling casino. People are just like, the human nature is like, holy crap, look how much money we can make, and completely tried to leapfrog the base layer. And that's why we have some weird Web 2.5 vibe as we do now, and everyone's kind of walking on thin ice. We need to get the base layer done first, so then everyone else can build on top of that. So.
Yeah, and for the people listening, live, and the people listening after, please write content about this. We'll be looking to vote it up. What we've built on the Speak Network we think is truly important. We think it's probably the first time this has been done in this way. It's released as a fair launch like this because we want to be outside the regulatory reach, outside the system, and we want to have pure community control and regulation of the content on the network, which is what we are currently achieving. We've done it in a way that you have a miner token drop, that you lock these miner tokens in if you're running infrastructure, and you can earn Speak. And if you delegate to those miner tokens, you also earn Speak, so you can participate in the governance. And then the other thing that we're doing, and then like I was just saying, eventually that governance token will be wide enough spread that we can start building our own DAO system and then self-funding using that. So by putting proposals into the DAO and then funding developers in the ecosystem and things like this, or maybe initially it's not full funding, but maybe it's part funding, and then over time it grows, so they can build more utility. The other thing that we're doing that is important, this is all content that people listening to this can be making. You'll see the rates are really low, like 0.015% per party, so for the node operator and for the delegator in Speak Growth APR. Now, that's not going to be the end rate. This is just the initial rate, and it's really super, super, super low. And the reason for that is because the people who are coming here to get rich quick, right, they're not going to get rich quick off this. Right? This isn't a get rich quick scheme where you can come in, buy the token, make loads of money, or come in, buy the token, stake it, make APR or whatever, right? The idea behind this is the people running this ecosystem, there's 59 node operators, we expect there to be more as this token comes out and people start to see the economic model working. These 60 people, and then other people who are also delegating to these people and taking part in the network, they'll all be able to earn this governance token and earn value over time. It'll be a very, very small amount, but the idea is that once the tech's built, once that storage system is built, which is probably the last major piece of tech that will come out over the next 3 or so months, don't hold me to that, but it was somewhere around 3 months. Once that's out, and we've got a basic working model working of people storing content and getting paid for it. At that point, we need to have 20 node validators elected, right? And we'll elect them by proof of stake. And what stake will be used to elect them? This current stake that's being distributed. So you're not getting into a get-rich-quick scheme here where, the token price is going to go up or something like that. What you're doing is you're getting into the very early, very small-scale initial distribution, which will give you early adopters, the first people that have dedicated their time and probably spent some of their own money. They've probably not made any money initially. But they're dedicated to the cause of what this is in terms of preserving free speech and having a decentralized ecosystem for content and off-chain. Once you have that in place and you give those people the ability to vote with those tokens, that to me is the most legitimate form of this, because those people are the people that really care about this. They're not here to make the money. They've already proven that. They're here because they care about the ecosystem. They're going to be the ones that are earning. And when I say them, I mean anyone listening to this that's staking, powering up larynx and delegating to a node, or any node operator. You are the people who are going to have the say, who become the first 20 node operators. And those people will then be processing the content through the system and pushing that to the storage side of things. And once they're in place, then at that point, we'll have a genuine ecosystem of distribution to various different places, to the CDNs, to the encoders, to the storage nodes, to the validators, to the people running the Speak CC chain. At that point, then we can ramp up the inflation of Speak, right? Because you'll have everything in place, and then at that point, boom, you can now start increasing the inflation of Speak. So then the validators and the people running the network together will be able to vote by running the latest software that has the actual inflation that we really want to go forward with. But for now, over the next 2, 3, maybe 4 months or so, it will be this really low rate, just to make sure that we're getting it out to the people that are interested in the network, that are genuinely there, and then they'll be the ones voting. And then at that point, the whole system will ramp up and the inflation will go. And we just think that's a really important way to do this. It's an important way to do it.
Just to make this a bit real, like this week in the world of podcasting, some research came out. Somebody published some research about the CDNs that power all podcasts, and it's some gargantuan number of podcasts are hosted on Amazon because, basically Amazon Web Services, and then, then it's Cloudflare, and then it's, there's 3 or 4 CDNs, and if they go down, 95% of the world's podcasts go dark, and there's the centralization of that is so immense, and what we're looking at with Speak, is somehow trying to have a community-owned version of a CDN that can compete with those guys, and it's going to be a long road. We're not going to have one next week or next year or next month. It can't, but it has to be done. That's what I'm in it for. That's why I'm running a node. That's why I'm running an encoder node. I'll run all the nodes I can, and it'll be on sort of hodgepodge hardware until it becomes, necessary to rent better servers and so forth. But I'll do it because I absolutely know we have to, because we cannot have censorship resistance while 50% of the world's podcasts are on Amazon. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I want to say to this. I think that you've really made me think of some interesting points here, and I appreciate you bringing this up, Ryan. And it's really good, Brian, that you're operating this tech. You're one of these people who gets it and realizes we need to operate this stuff independently. And so the first one is the nature of the DPoS vote means that we can guarantee. I think pretty much guarantee. I think the chances are incredibly low. So I'd be happy to say guarantee that you're not going to get one of these big conglomerates coming in here operating nodes, because they're not going to get voted in. The people aren't going to vote for them. They've already proven their track record.
And I'll tell you, this is something which is where Hive is streets ahead, and it's hard to explain. You don't have to know, you don't have to KYC yourself to Hive, but you do have to allow, if you want to get voted into a position of authority on Hive, and it will be the same thing on the Speak network, you have to give something of yourself. People have to know who you are. They don't have to know your legal name or your legal identity or where you live or your ID number or any of those other things that matter for KYC. But they have to know some part of who you digitally are and what you digitally believe. What is your philosophy of the world from the point of view of freedom of speech and these other important topics? That's that's the KYC. That's the know your node. We need a KYN or something
KYN,
like that.
Yeah, know your node operator.
That's a strong point about DPoS. Is it's so underrated, the fact that it's the only one where reputation matters, and everyone knows reputation is the stairs up and the elevator down. It's very fragile. You can't buy it, and it's extremely easy to lose. So people
I'll give you an example.
very hesitant to risk it.
Sometimes I'm doing 500,000 sats a day now on sats to value for sats to Hive and Hive to sats. Sometimes 100,000 to 500,000 volume. Now, which is a couple of $100. But the only thing, you have to trust me. People send me 75 Hive and they want an invoice of 200,000 sats paid. They are trusting me for 5 seconds, 6 seconds. But my reputation on Hive is worth so much more than any one of those transactions that I will move heaven and earth to make transactions work. If something goes wrong, I will refund as fast as I can get to my phone. It's my reputation, my existence on Hive is financially very important to me. It's become a very important financial asset to me. I wouldn't fuck that up to steal $20.
It's an NFT. It's an NFT.
It's more, yeah. But it's more than it's one of my core pieces of identity.
Oh, Brian, these name calling competitions are working out for you here. Taskmaster's just written that and said, I would trust Brian with 200K. He's a good dude.
200K sats or 200K USD?
He's got dollars. He's written dollars. I would as well, Brian.
No, listen, I believe that my Hive accounts, my Hive presence is worth 200K easily.
It's only because we know that the yachts that you move around the Mediterranean are worth more than that anyway.
Yeah, you got to measure it versus the yacht.
I need my own yacht. I don't want to ride around on other people's yachts anymore.
Well, anyway, reputation does have a cost to it. if people want to actually exploit it. Some are actually priceless. So that's something you can't build on a proof of stake or a proof of work governance system. So
it's like a Hive standard. We need to have some kind
Yeah.
of. I don't even know if it's a standard or something that the community decides spontaneously. But there's like a Hive standard to pass across. It's like, if you've been around Hive for long enough and people know that you've been commenting and taking part, then you're probably real. And now you've got your identity KYC'd, as it were, but no one still knows who you are. That's super powerful, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just tying the social layer. We see a lot of other defaults, and not all are created equal because you don't see the same communities. You see a fragmented validators. You see exchanges as validators. You ask your average DPoS hodler outside of a Hive ecosystem, they probably don't even know the validators. But that's because they didn't have a social built in. So when you built in the social, and really that was sort of the first thing everyone's attracted to, it became a standard to be, well, if I'm going to vote for somebody, they need to at least have an introduction post, right? Like, you don't even have an intro post. Who's this guy? And it became a baseline standard. And as the community grew and matured, they used these tools, and it's just a natural benchmark. It's like, it's a parameter. You have to parameter people to go the right direction. If you put this thing in there, it's like different ingredients. So now people on Hive, you're expected to have somewhat, we don't need to know who you are. Half of us don't want to know who you are. We just need to see your work. We need to see who you are in terms of what quality do you bring? Are you trustworthy? I trust some of the people I trust most on Hive. I don't know their names.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to keep it that way. I think you need both. I think you need a flavor of faces and a flavor of anons, and a hell of a lot of backups that can pop up just in case.
Exactly.
I think that brings a little bit of both.
Yep. And that actually brings me to the other point that I think we're going to be looking at here with the SPK Network, which is slightly different to Hive, but it's a similar mentality. So, for example, let's take Brian, right? What you're going to have is you're going to have the list of node operators, right? And it's going to have what infrastructure are they operating? Because at the moment, most people are just operating the SPK claim chain node. Right?
Yeah, which you can run on nothing. I mean,
you can run on nothing, right? So that's the whole thing's designed as a layer 2, and because of that, all the heavy duty stuff is on Hive, and the light stuff is on the layer 2 on Honeycomb technology, and it's light as fuck. I think it's like $5 a month to run a node. Yeah. So then the next thing is, can these same people either teach themselves or already have the expertise to move across to running an encoder node? And then the next node, and Voltec is full-time on this now, he's building the CDN node system, which is based off the encoder node system. So it's the same base, so it's not as much work to do, but it's obviously a different system, so he has to build that out in a different way. But that'll be the next thing to come out in the next few weeks.
And that's a bit more complicated because that's gonna need some weird combinations of bandwidth and hardware at the edge of the networks and stuff.
But hold on, let's get into the CDN nodes in a second. But the overarching point I'm trying to make here is you're going to see that the names of the people who are running infrastructure, and then what infrastructure they're running. And then it's going to be like, do you want to vote this person for a validator node? Because that's going to be the heart of the system is going to be these top 20 or top 40, whatever we end up going with, validator nodes, where the content's flowing through them, and then they distribute that out to the storage people. And then they ping and use the proof of access algorithm to verify if those people are still storing what they say they're storing at random times. And we're looking at it and going, well, there's other things that we can bolt onto these nodes, these validator nodes, to make them really the center of the ecosystem. And they will be voted in by DPoS. So you'll be able to see, what I'm envisaging is a matrix table with everyone's names and which infrastructure they're operating. And if the guy's operating all the infrastructure in the ecosystem, he's probably getting my validator node vote,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's,
That's how you do it.
I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on these CDNs there, Brian, because I think that's the next interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, this is going off on a techie tangent, but there is a reason. It is bloody hard to build another Cloudflare. It's bloody hard to build another Amazon. So it's a heck of a challenge we've set ourselves. But what I completely envisage that we are going to do is we're going to have lots of us operating accounts within some of these major CDNs, which means that it's just really hard to shut us down. It's really hard to shut the whole thing down. If it's not just, this was the mistake, of course, that Parler made. They had one account with Amazon. But if we've got dozens and dozens of CDNs CDN nodes, but some of them are running on Amazon's hardware. Well, how does Amazon know which ones are running the Speak network? It's going to be so hard for them.
Do you know what it is, Brian?
It's
It's a decentralized Amazon.
Well, it's Decepticons.
Decepticons. Yeah. You can't tell. Yeah. But it is a decentralized Amazon. It's decentralized Amazon Web Services. That's what it is.
I mean, that's what we're trying to build, and it's a very, and people have tried to build this before, and they've tokenized it and stuff. But as always, it nearly always rested on some, Filecoin or some, or it was bought by Justin Sun or some other horrible corrupting agent. So I'm looking at this, and I'm hoping that we can do it right, and that we get the right combination. We need this right combination of people with enough technical nous and enough ideological drive in the early days, knowing full well that this is not going to be a money spinner. It's not going to be a money spinner yet, but I think it will be. But I'm not.
What's happening is because like running the Speak claim chain node is super cheap, it's super basic. It's basically, people do make a little bit of money from it, but it's very little, and you're in it for the fun, you're in it for the ideology, right? You're in it for the free speech. But when you get to things like running an encoder node, it's a bit more heavy duty. CDN probably even more heavy duty, and then the storage side is pretty heavy duty. And it's like, but then at the same time, we're not releasing these mechanisms without having a way for people to get paid. So the encoder node operators, they get a share of 1% of Speak's beneficiary for now, Speak's beneficiary for now, But I don't think he's done it yet, but he's about to release a payment system where you can basically click a list of encoder nodes. So if you don't have the encoding capacity on your computer and you don't want to use Speak's encoder because that's busy or whatever, and you look over there and there's Brian London's encoder, Brian London will have a rate. It's like, per megabyte or whatever, you're going to pay me 5 Hive, and then you just click keychain confirm 5 Hive, and then you get the job, right? And so we'll be able to do payments like that, and then when Braca comes along, which will be the last token to come out in the series, that'll the more Speak you power up, the more Braca you'll have,
and it'll automate this whole thing, and that's what it is. And this is, again, I put this in my post, sort of as an addendum, the post sort of introducing the fact that I'm running these nodes. It's like, this is what the Lightning guys have sort of missed. They've only got one method of paying for their infrastructure, and it's pretty poor. And this was the Bitcoin maxis, funnily enough, they don't quite understand how important inflation is to Bitcoin and how far inflation has got them. They've needed inflation up to now. They keep looking at the end goal, which is, this thing's deflationary. But the whole thing was built on inflation, massive inflation at the start, massive, huge block allocations of inflation. And the fact that it halves every 4 years is, that's all great. That's asymptotically deflationary. But right now it's still inflationary. And the only way you built it was through chain inflation. Hive is the same. But even Hive is turning into being almost deflationary now because of the stuff we've done with HBD and Hive, it appears. People, that they don't see the whole picture, but the genius of this blockchain crypto revolution was paying for the infrastructure, having some way of compensating infrastructure, because it was the capture of the infrastructure by big corporations that's just destroyed us in Web 1 to Web 2.